Hey guys, it's Hayes with CheatSheetPros.com. Today we are going to take a look at sports betting picks for NFL Week 10. So we've got our handy dandy cheat sheet here that we're going to run through. I'm going to talk about it. We're going to look at some games. I've also got the stats from last week off our point-wise sheets. And we're going to talk about some games and we're going to go through and I'm just going to give you my opinion. Fade it, follow it, doesn't really matter. You guys make your decision, but let's go ahead and get started. So one of the first games I put in the article this week, let me pull it up and show it to you, is a 3-team 10-point teaser. I freaking love these. They're like cocaine. They are extremely addicting. I don't know if cocaine is addicting. I'm assuming it is. So the first one, I couldn't find a good third NFL games, and as crazy as the shit was last week, I'm real hesitant to do a third game after we saw what happened with Buffalo and Dallas and all these crazy games. So the first game I'm going to do is I pulled one of my college games. I took the Georgia Bulldogs. They're minus 20, 20 and a half, somewhere around there, and I knocked it down to, I got it at minus 10. So for them to win by 10 seems like a no-brainer. I won't go into the full analysis of that game. If you follow Georgia, you know it's pretty rock solid. The other two NFL games I like in this teaser are the Buffalo Bills. I like taking them from minus 12 down to minus 2, so they pretty much just have to win the game by a field goal. And then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, taking them from 10, 10 and a half down to pick or minus a half if you want to get tricky. So let's go ahead and take a look at those two games. Let me pull this over here out of the way. So this first game we've got was Buffalo and the New York Jets. So the main thing here is the Jets are flipping terrible. Like, I'm not going to look at laying, 13 and a half, 12 and a half. If you want to, that's fine. We'll take a look at it. You can see our two lines here. We've got this at Buffalo minus 17 and a half, Buffalo minus 14. So I easily think they are going to bounce back and win this game. Our cheat line score has it 31-17. Bills, so rolling it up. Down here, if you get into our skew model that we're projecting and testing, we've got it about 38-11. So we've got them just rolling this game. There's about a 200-yard gap between these two teams. Offensively, as far as yards per game, we've got the number 8 and number 4, 24 teams, so opposite ends of the spectrum, and exactly opposite ends on the defensive side. So Buffalo has the number 1 defense in yards per game, allowing only 262, while the Jets are on the other side, allowing the most yards per game at 408. So asking them just to win the game, I don't feel like is too much trouble. And then when we go in and we take a look last week, so Buffalo, I talked about this in one of the other videos. So Buffalo got crushed last week. They only had 301 total yards, 17 first downs, and 6 points. So I look for them to bounce back strong because I'm sure there's a lot of rumblings and talk about how Josh Allen isn't good and they got pulverized and beat up. I don't think they were ready for that game. They were a 16.5 point favorite. I thought they were going to go in there and just have an easy win, and Jacksonville came in with nothing to lose and slapped them around. Now, their defense did really well. Their defense, even though they lost the game, they only gave up 218 total yards, 16 first downs, and then the 9 points. So their defense played really good. Their offense just shit the bed. Now, when you come over here, now they're going to play the Jets this week. Now, look at what the Jets did last week. This is almost comical. So the Jets played the Colts, and they gave up 45 points, 28 first downs, 260 yards on the ground, 272 yards in the air, 532 total yards for 45 points and almost 30 first downs. This is a perfect bounce back spot for Buffalo. My God, if they can't win this game, they're put a fork in them, they are done. And then the other one, Tampa Washington. So Tampa, stout D. Like if you go over here, you look at their defense, they only allow 78 rushing yards per game. So it's not that Washington's going to run on them. No one's going to run on them. I mean, they're a defensive front that's unreal. But their secondary is still pretty good. So we've got this line at 12.5 to 9, somewhere around there. We've got them winning 30-21. On our skew line, we got it up to about 38-19, just rounded up, say 38-20. They could really rack up a lot of points here. As far as this yard per point right here, and I don't talk about this a lot, but this is kind of a projected yard per point number. League average, you can see up here, this little number is 14.8. So league average in the NFL is 14.8 for any offense. That means for every 14.8 yards, they score 1 point. So if you can project yards, that kind of helps you decide how many points they can get, what range it is. It's the same thing that we use like efficiency and possessions in basketball. We use yard per point and yards in football. So right here with Tampa's going at 11.9 yards per point. That's well above league average. That's one of the best in the NFL. 17.7 is on the other side. That's one of the, I'd say, bottom 7, bottom 8 in the NFL going up against a good defense. And then when we look at the offensive yards, we've got third most versus middle of the pack. And then defensively, 7th least versus the bottom 3, bottom 4. So Washington's given up almost 400 yards a game on defense, and then Tampa's putting up 423. So we could safely say, hey, they're going to put up 400 to 430 yards on offense. So that's pretty fantastic. Now let me pull out a calculator. I'll do a quick math. So if we think they're going to put up around 400 yards and they're running at 11.9 yard per point, so that's going to give them about 33.6 points. So round that up or down, you could say anywhere between 30 and 35 would be a safe number to give Tampa Bay. Now, look, Tampa Bay is giving up 335, and then Washington's only putting up 340. So you could 348. So if you take an average of that, you say, okay, we're going to give them 340 yards. We're going to be pretty safe with it. Now, not 640, 340. Now, their yard per point number is 17.7. So that's going to give them about 19 points. So that's how you kind of see we're coming up with 31 to 19 or 33 to 19 or 33 to 20. That's a rough calculation for all you math nerds out there. So either way, we're just asking Tampa Bay to win the damn game. So I don't think that's going to be too hard to do. As far as the Vegas sports betting numbers, one of our users wanted me to add this, and I told him if you can find it and I can grab it, I will add it. Well, he found it and we added it. I think we put this back in like week 3 or week 4, but you can see here, Washington is 1-7 ATS. Now, Tampa Bay is not much better. They're 3-5, but I got to go against Washington in this spot, especially if we're teasing it down to where they just have to win the game and we're not going to cover. I mean, my God, it's already moved from 7.5 to 9.5 in favor of Tampa. As far as our index power rankings, we got the 3rd best team versus the 26th team. Just asking them to win after all the craziness we've seen, I don't think it's too hard. And we just talked about Tampa Bay and how much they like to pass in the DFS video when we talked about stacking Tom Brady. They pass at the highest clip in the NFL at 67%, while Washington gives up the most average pass yards per game at 286.8, which ranks 32nd, dead last in the NFL. So we think Brady's going to be able to throw all over him. I definitely don't think they're going to lose this game, and so that's something that I'm going to take advantage of, put it on a teaser, and I'm going to play it safe. I'm not going to sweat them trying to win by 10. I just want them to win, and I'm going to hit my first game on Saturday with the Bulldogs, and then I'm going to be like Bills, Bucks. That's going to be my big hammer for the weekend. Now, moving down for some of the straight bets, I think I have about 5 in here that I liked, wanted to talk about. And again, you can fade them, follow them. You know, I'll tell you why I like them, and you decide, hey, that makes sense, or hey, that's stupid as hell. I read a lot of stuff, and a lot of the point-wise write-ups when they put, over the last 15 years, this team is 1-15 ATS. Well, I don't care about the last 15 years. I care about what the team looks like today. How have they been doing? Recent stats, recent performance. How are they ranked? What do their numbers look like? I don't care about that stuff. So it's easy for me to read that stuff and then put it in a box, throw it out the window, and be like, all right, see ya. So the LA Rams -3, -3.5. I've seen this bounce around a little bit. I like that one, and let me tell you why. So our index line, we have it at Rams -6.5. Our cheat line does not agree. They've got this at a 1.5 game, so this is really close. So nothing in this sheet is saying, hey, play the Rams. This is me, Hayes, saying, hey, let's play the Rams. Now, one of the things that I like here is Stafford's going to have plenty of time to pass. They're number 3 in pass pro, and San Francisco's 25th in putting pressure on the QB. So we're going to have plenty of time to throw. We do have the Rams winning 27-25. Down here on the skew line, we got it up to about 31-21. I also like this yard per point efficiency number. San Francisco is below league average. The Rams are well above league average. Offensively, 365 to 399. I'd say, okay, that's about the same. Defensively, 338, 348. It's 10 yards. Okay, they're the same. So statistically on paper, they're about the same yardage-wise, offensive and defensive. you can see here the Rams don't give up many yards on the ground. They're middle of the road on the passing side. And then San Francisco gives up a bunch of yards on the ground, but not as many on the passing side. So if these teams are identical, and if they're within 20 yards, I'm going to say that's identical. So offensively, defensively, everything else is all equal. Then we can come down here and look at this yard per point. Well, we've got the Rams at a much better yard per point at 12.4. So let's do a quick math calculation. I didn't do this one ahead of time, and I'm curious to what it says. So let's give them, so they're putting up 365, 399. Let's give each team around 380 average. They're going to up 340. So we'll say both teams are going to put up 360. We'll kind of middle of the road it. So we give the Rams 360 yards by 12.4 yard per point. We give them about 29 points. And then we take that same 360 by the 17.0, and that gives them about 21. So that's roughly how we're coming up with our skew number down here. That's 30.9 to 21.1. So either way, we've got the Rams winning by about 9. So I'm going to lay the 3.5 here in a bounce back game. And let me see. So last week they lost to Tennessee, but they did really good defensively. They only gave up 194 total yards, 16 first downs, 69 yards on the ground, and 125 yards in the air. But they gave up 28 points. That's just unlucky. I mean, there's not a lot they can do there. The defense played really well. Now, the offense did not do as well. They did manage 22 to 16, so they held the edge in first downs. Total yards, they took them 347 to 194. But again, the scoreboard's what matters. They got unlucky with a few turnovers and let that game go. So I look for them to bounce back here and take advantage of San Francisco. San Francisco did play last week, so let's take a look and see what they did. So they played Arizona. They gave up 31 points, 22 first downs, 163 rushing yards, 274 in the air, 437 total yards. So they were down 100 yards, total yards on offense, the same in first downs, and then just got killed on the scoreboard. So they did decent, but Arizona got the best of them, and I think the Rams are in a big bounce back spot here to go get them. The second game that I'm going to go ahead and take a look at is the Indianapolis Colts. So Colts are laying 10, so if you want a third game to put on that teaser, I don't mind doing Colts, taking it down to pick them. I'm not going to lie to you, it does worry me a little bit because Jacksonville beat up on Buffalo last week. I don't think they're going to do it again. I think this is a letdown spot, but when I bet my 3-team 10-point teasers, I make those very large wagers, and I don't feel comfortable putting the Colts on there. I would rather just do a normal unit and lay the 10, or you could even mix it in with some other games on a small 6-point teaser. Either way, we've got the line at 10. Now, the cheat line does not agree. These stats are heavily skewed, though, so you got to be careful. And this is why I always say, look at all the information that you have, dissect it, and then make a decision on what you think. So as far as the ATS record down here, we've got Jacksonville at 3-5. We got Indy at 6-3. Indy is 3-2 at home. Jacksonville's 1-2 on the road. They're coming off the big game offensively. Indianapolis has been phenomenal recently. They're putting up 371. So we have the teams slightly above league average, and then Jacksonville slightly below league average. And then defensively, pretty much about the same. They're a little worse than league average, although Indy's been getting a little better. And then we come down here, and the one thing that I did like last week, even though the Jets are terrible, Indy was very efficient. They scored on their first 4 drives. They put up 532 total yards on offense, 28 first downs, and 45 points. So not only did they get the points, they moved the ball. They converted first downs. They racked up some. Now, if you compare that to someone like Tennessee, who they had 28 points and won the game, but if you look at it, they had 194 total yards and 16 first downs. But then if you look at Indy, 28 first downs, 532 total yards, you can say, hey, they did really well and they won the game. Tennessee won the game, but they played like ass, so they did not do as well. So I really like the way they were playing. And then Jacksonville, let me see. So Indy gave up 30 points, 30 first downs, 486 yards to the Jets. So yeah, not good. And then Jacksonville, they were, okay, make sure I'm looking at the right team. So Jacksonville last week, They only had 16 first downs, 139 passing yards, and 218 yards. So we're basically taking the team that just rolled up 500 yards and hopefully can slow down Jacksonville. Jacksonville is playing awful right now, except for their one game they had on defense last week. So I like Indy laying the points. I think this is going to be a big letdown game for Jacksonville on the road. Indy saw that game last week, so they know what's coming. I think they're going to be ready for it, and that's a good prime spot for them. Let's move on. The next game I like is we're going to go back over here to Atlanta and Dallas. Where are we at? So here I like Atlanta and taking the points, the 9.5, whatever you can get it at. We've got this line across two models at Dallas minus 5.5. So we think Dallas is going to win. That's not an issue, but 9 is too many points to give Atlanta. So we've got this score right now at 28-23, 28-24, somewhere in that ballpark. Down here on our skew line, it's a little bit greater. We got it 35-21. So this actually shows Dallas rolling, which I don't think is going to happen because a lot of these stats are from the beginning of the year when Atlanta wasn't good, but then over the last 4 weeks, they've been playing a lot better. And as we talked about in the DFS video, Atlanta throws the ball at a 63% clip. They can't run the ball. I mean, down here they had 34 rushing yards last week. So 332 in the air, 34 on the ground. So yes, it was a tough defense, but they don't run the ball. They can't run the ball. They're averaging 80 rush yards per game and then about 260 through the air. Well, that fits perfect with Dallas because Dallas is not allowing very many rushing yards, the 10th least amount in the NFL, but they're giving up the 25th most average passing yards per game at 270.5. So Atlanta throwing the ball all the time, likely playing catch-up, trying to get back in the game. I think it's going to be hard for Dallas to put them out of their misery and cover 10. So I like grabbing the 9 points here. I think that's a key spot. Now, Dallas is 7-1 ATS, but last week we saw what they did. They had a really rough get-back game. So last week, I don't think anyone saw this coming. You had Denver release, trade, whatever it was, Von Miller, and then they went on the road to Dallas with Dak returning. I don't think anyone and their mom thought Dallas was going to win that game. Dallas won that game. So Denver won it 30-16. They took them in first downs 23-14, rush yards 190-78, and total yards 407-290. They just completely went into the Cowboys stadium and beat the hell out of them. So Dallas is probably feeling a little sad. I think they'll bounce back, but I don't think they're going to be able to put Atlanta out of its misery. Atlanta, I did not think they were going to win last week. New Orleans' offense is not that good, even though they did well last week, but they end up going in there and knocking the Saints off in their own house. Now, they had 366 total yards, only 18 first downs, but they managed 27 points, so they got the job done. And then now, Dallas is not near the defense that the Saints are, and you're giving me 9 points, 9.5 in some spots. I've got to take the 9 there. I definitely can't lay it with the Dallas side. One of the other games we want to look at, and we talked about this on the teaser, so I won't spend a ton of time, but Buffalo, if you want to lay the points, that's fine. Jets are awful. Buffalo's defense is solid. I like him to cover this. You can see the line open at 13.5, went down to 12.5. It'll probably get to 12, maybe 11.5. I think a lot of people will jump on the Jets seeing how many yards they racked up against the Colts last week and how Buffalo got beat up. But this is a perfect bounce back spot for them. I mean, teams that are good for a reason. And in our index rankings, we got the number 2 versus the dead last team in the NFL. So if a team is going to cover the spread, it's going to be Buffalo this week. Buffalo on defense, 4th and first least amount of yards, 1st and least total yards. And then look at the other side of it, the Jets allowing the most total yards, the 27th most rushing yards, the 29th most passing yards. I mean, this is as good of a get-right spot as you can get. And we talk about this YPP number. We got Buffalo playing at 11.5, and then we've got the Jets at 21.2. So that's probably the best and the worst numbers right there. And if you look at this, Buffalo's putting up 390. Jets are giving up 408. So, yeah, we could say Buffalo's going to put up 400 yards. I mean, that's fairly easy. I mean, it's not like something we're asking for. Hey, where'd you go? It's not like we're asking for too much for that to happen. I mean, that's kind of what the numbers are pointing at. So if we give Buffalo 400 yards at a YPP of 11.5, that gives them 34.7 points. So that gives them a massive amount of points. And I mean, typically where I look at this and I get thrown off is when you have like Buffalo's only giving up 262, but say the other team was putting up 400. Now you got a huge gap in there, so you got to project. Is it going to be weighted to the defense, weighted to the offense? Is it going to be in the middle? What number do you use for a projection? Well, when you've got 390 and 408, that's not much of a difference. I mean, they're 18 yards apart. Fuck it, take the middle. 400 yards, boom. We're going to give them 34, 35 points. I'm good with that. On the other side, the Jets are putting up 330, and they're giving up 262. So let's take the 262, 330. Let's middle it, 296. And then they've got a 21.2 YPP. So we got them at 13.96 points, so 14 points. Let's even bump it more. Let's say, so the Bills are giving up 262 yards per game. Let's see what they did last week. So last week they only gave up 218 to Jacksonville in their massive, epic loss. But let's give the Jets, they're putting up 330 a game. Heck, let's give them 350. Let's even bump that up. Well, still at 21.2, that's 16.5 points, so say 17. So you're looking at what, 35-17? You know, even 34-17 covers you. Well, hell, 30-17 covers you. So I like the cover here. Long story short. All right, so we like the Bills in a bounce back spot. And I got one more game that I really do like, and it is against public opinion. And that is going to be the Chargers and Minnesota. So the majority of the money right now on the PFF green line is money on the Chargers at home. Chargers at home are 5-3 or 5-3 ATS, 2-2 at home. Minnesota's 4-4 ATS, but what's shocking is they're 1-3 at home, but they're 3-1 on the road. So Minnesota's been playing really good on the road. The majority of people are on the Chargers. Now, the reason that I like Minnesota, the other side of this, now, our cheat line has it about 1.5. So typically I would look at this and say, don't worry about the game. The line's 3. We got it at 1.5. There's no edge there to 1.5. And then I would look down here at our kind of skew line and say, okay, we got 25, 24, somewhere around there. You know, maybe take the 3 points. But again, that's only a difference of 3 or 4. That's not really enough to make a play. Even in basketball, we look for 6.5 points difference to call it a play or whatnot. But when I'm looking at this game, the one thing that I know is the Chargers' rush defense is awful. They're giving up the most rush yards per game at 161.6. And then Minnesota is one of the best rushing teams. They run for the 9th most run yards per game. And Dalvin Cook's probably going to go bananas in this game. So I think them just being able to run the ball effectively is going to eat up a lot of clock. It's going to keep them in the game, if not the lead. Heaven forbid if they get the lead and they start pounding Dalvin, it's going to be tough for the Chargers to come back and get in that. Either way, if you're getting the 3 points, I'd probably buy the 3.5, take the hook. Or if you've got another game that we went over that you like, throw it on a small 6-point teaser. 6 is going to take you from +3 to +9. I love it at +9 to stay in this game. It should be a close game, like something like a 27-24, 24-21, 28-24, somewhere in that range. So I think +3 is good. I haven't bet it yet. I may just do money line on it and try to crank up the payout a little bit more, but I like grabbing the 3 points in this spot. A couple other games that I do want to talk about. So those are the favorite games that I do like that I put in the article. We've got the Rams, we've got the Colts, we've got the Falcons plus the 9.5, Buffalo laying the points, Minnesota grabbing it. Some of the other games to talk about, Packers, Seattle. I will bet the Packers. It sounds like Aaron Rodgers is on track to return, but it's not official. So until it's official, I can't call it a play and say, hey, I'm going to bet this. But Green Bay at home, they're 8-1 ATS overall. They're 3-0 ATS at home. They're going up against Seattle, and look at Seattle's defense over here. 25th most rush yards per game allowed, 28th most pass yards per game allowed. I mean, just the overall defense right here, they're giving up over 400 yards, and then you're going back, and if Aaron Rodgers is out there with Devontae Adams, Aaron Jones, that are playing at home, and this line's already moved from Green Bay -5 to 3.5. It was 3 earlier today, so maybe the news of Aaron Rodgers likely coming back is going to pump it back up, but I like going with the Packers here. The Packers defense has been pretty solid, 5th least amount of yards allowed at 321. So these are things I look for on the cheat sheet, just drastic differences. Yardage-wise, they kind of sit about the same, but both QBs have missed a game or two. But defensively, I mean, that kind of tells the story right there. So if you average these yards out, it gives Green Bay about a 100-yard edge. And so you just got to figure out, is that 100 yards enough to cover 3.5 points? Well, our cheat line has this at Packers -6. We got them winning 25-19. Our skew line is a little bit closer because Seattle has a pretty good YPP number. But even if Russell Wilson is back for this game, which I think he is supposed to play, he's going to be a little rusty. He's going to be a little shaky. I don't think he's 100%. And I'm going to go with Aaron Rodgers at home and lay the 3.5 here. The next game that I'm considering, or I was looking into, was the Titans and the Saints. So this is going to be a very interesting game. It's not one that made a play for me, at least not at this time. So we saw what... So we saw what the Titans did last week. They won, but if you look at the stats, they won a very ugly game. Well, the Saints defense is pretty legit. So that worries me. But then this whole Alvin Kamara knee sprain, likely not going to play, but could play, but they're planning on playing without him. That would be a huge blow to the Saints offense. The Saints D could turn Tennessee upside down and completely shut them out. But offensively, the Saints are 28th in offensive yards per game. So they're kind of hard to trust. So I think this game has a lot of variance in it. You can see our two spreads here have it 1.5 each way. So I don't love either side of this. This is a game I'm excited to see, just to see how it plays out. But again, I'm worried Saints defense can beat up on Tennessee, because Tennessee behind the stats did not look good last week. Another one is Arizona and the Panthers. Well, here, I'm just going to hit these two games real quick. This video is getting pretty long. So Arizona at the Panthers. Arizona is 7-2 ATS, and they have a huge edge in QB pressure because Carolina is 26th against pass pro, and Arizona's 3rd at applying pressure. But there are so many moving parts in this game with the Panthers QB, Cam Newton signed, Christian McCaffrey's back, but he's not 100%. Kyler Murray's questionable, but he was back at practice. D-Hop's been on the questionable on-off practice rest. So there's so many moving parts in this game. I prefer Arizona in the defense, but it's not one I can get behind at this point with all the different things. I can't really get a good feel for it. And the other one is Detroit and Pitt. So I wanted to do a Detroit +8 or Detroit +9, but it's hard to back the Lions because they've got a YPP of 21.1, which is one of the worst in the NFL. So they could play well and hang in this game, or they could completely shit the bed and get blown out by 40. There's just so much variance with the Lions. I just can't get behind them. Detroit's 4-4 ATS. Pitt's 3-5. Pitt's down a bunch of offensive weapons. They have a bad offensive line, but the Lions have no consistencies, so I went ahead and shied away from that game. But anyways, that's what we got for our NFL best bets for Week 10. Follow us on Twitter. I think it's just CheatSheetPros, and that's usually where I post any last-minute plays. We've been posting a little bit of NBA stuff. I've secretly been working on the college basketball betting sheet, so that's what I've been doing. So I haven't been looking at a lot of NBA stuff, but I have just been betting the Warriors, who've been money machine so far this year. But good luck. Have a good weekend, guys. I work Monday, and then I am off for 2 weeks, so I'll have a lot of content, a lot of plays, a lot of sheets, a lot of stuff going on. So let's go make some money and have some fun. Later.